Aloha. Welcome to Return on Wellness, a web series brought to you by Olympian Meeting.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Return on Wellness. I am joined by Rachael Riggs with Maritz. I know we were talking about what your title was, and you were explaining it to me, but unfortunately, I ran out of brain cells because it is day 4 of IMEX to remember all of it. So please remind me what your title is.
Sure. I'm the General Manager of Environmental Strategy and Wellbeing Subject Matter Expert.
Okay. Now, what I'd like to do is, for the people at home that may or may not know who you are, I'd love to dig a little bit into your background and just understand how you got into this role.
Sure. It's a lifelong journey for me, actually. And I'll start from the beginning, I was not a healthy young kid and had to get healthy. I had to lose some weight because I was a large little kid.
How old were you when that?
I was in 7th grade.
7th grade. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I was 50 pounds overweight as a 7th grader.
Okay.
And so I needed to get healthy. My family came from middle of the country, and they were just, didn't have health and wellness in their brain. And so I lost 50 pounds between 7th and 8th grade, and it started my journey to a healthy experience in life.
Can I ask how you did that? Because I think that we talk well. We talk a lot about wellness, but we don't necessarily talk. I don't hear a lot of people talk about wellness for kids. Like, we all kind of think like kids are active and they can eat whatever they want and whatnot. But you don't have to give anything specific. You can only share what you want.
I'm just kidding. So
did you ride your one large front cycle? No, I'm just kidding.
My big wheel. No, I had a green monster though.
Okay.
No, my mom knew that I was worried because I was getting made fun of as a young kid, and it was very uncomfortable. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin, and she would go to jazzercise. So it tells you how long ago this was, and I just fell in love with the movement of things. I have to say, and I'm not embarrassed to say this, my dad was diagnosed with MS when I was in fourth grade, and so my brother and I just ate our emotions, and he's now 600 pounds, and I'm not that. And so it's a matter of setting your ground and understanding what you need as a person. And I was able to do that at that young age. And I went to jazzercise. I watched what I ate, and it was a very purposeful way. But the fact of the matter is kids' wellness is not, it's talked about, but it's not educated enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you touched on some significant things there, because you can't, I heard someone else say something like, you can't meditate your way into so-and-so. So the fact that you had to do some mindfulness very early on in your life to be able to accomplish something like that, let alone the bullying, right, in itself is like another thing, right? Like, you had to cope with that. And
can I give you
yes.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. My nickname growing up was Moose.
Now, you said you grew up in the middle of the country.
In Indiana.
In Indiana, okay, all right. Because you live in
Chicago.
Oh, I thought for some reason, why did I think you were in Canada at some point? Oh, you did a bunch of programs in Canada.
I used to work for the Vancouver DMO, and so
I
worked for them for 16 years.
Okay, all right.
Going back, let me tell you. Okay, so that was my personal experience.
Indiana, growing up,
you wanted to run a corporate fitness center. That was my thing. So I graduated.
Because you got into fitness young.
Yes.
Let alone, okay, so parents, you can take your kids to group fitness class.
Yeah.
Right? Like 24-hour fitness, Golds, whatever. Take them to Zumba.
Show them.
Yeah.
Show them. Take them with you. Even if I go to Burn Boot Camp now, and there's a daycare in there, and I love seeing the little kids walk by to go to the daycare because they're seeing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's influencing them, and it's going to take. They're going to take that with them.
Yeah,
and I think it's really cool that parents do that.
It's an important thing to teach kids.
Yes.
There's like CrossFit for kids now called Kids Strong.
Yes.
Which someone was talking about, like, this kid like punched their dad and it actually hurt. He's like, I got to pull him out of Kids Strong. Like, he hit me too hard.
And he's probably 8.
Right. Okay, so you had some very strong principles instilled in you young.
Yes.
Which then, by the time you got to college,
I studied I studied corporate fitness and marketing, sports marketing, and business, and so I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to work for Apple is really what I wanted to do, and I wanted to run their corporate fitness center. And I knew that because my long story, but I went to work for the Association for Fitness and Business, and that was an association back in the 90s, and I was just trying to absorb and understand the industry from a corporate fitness perspective. And then they asked me to work on their trade show, and it was so fun. I got to know the people at Life Fitness, Kaiser Sports Health Equipment, Reebok, all of those people. I got to know all the people at various different sports health equipment companies, and I ran their trade show. And I was like, this is my calling. I love this, right? But I was young, and I needed to go do some other things. So I started off, and I did that show for 6 years and learned a lot about event planning. And then I went to the wellness side of the business, or to wellness, and went to work for the drug company Cyril Pharmaceutical, and I was on the launch team of the drug Ambien, which is a while ago. But I created sleep wellness programs, and I would go around with sleep experts and teach people in the corporate fitness and corporations the benefits of quality sleep. So it was bringing in that holistic well-being, right? Not just physical activity. It was holistic well-being. So then I went in, I was like, I miss the events industry. So I went into the back into the events industry, and started planning all kinds of large corporate events, Oracle, HP, all the tech and the .com. And I was like, gosh, it's not time. I wanted to always bring my two professional loves together, wellness and events. And because in the corporate fitness world, they have such great programs, and there's a lot of great guardrails when you're in the four walls of the company. But the minute those people go out on the road, and this is before working from home, right? The minute those people go on the road or go to an event, those rails would come off, and then they'd come home tired, frustrated with themselves because they didn't follow their regiment and things like that. And so I was watching all of this, and then I thought, went from the planner side to the supplier side because.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you were at those companies, when they did their internal meetings, did they do wellness stuff and or fitness stuff? Like
I did it for them.
Okay, well, because that was my experience when I worked at 24 Hour Fitness HQ.
Mm-hmm.
Our meetings had to be when like club managers would come in for trainings. I had to schedule a workout. Like that was just part of the deal.
Yeah.
Like there was supposed to be a workout every morning. So when you were working with those other companies, but then when they went to the larger conferences, all that stuff was out the window.
Out the window. Out the window. Why?
That's so insane. Like, how is that even a thing? Like you would think.
But it didn't have the champion to go with them. So
yeah, okay.
And when I worked at the Association for Fitness and Business, the ROI on wellness was a big thing back in the 90s. And I actually, I still have some of the articles that I wrote back then about ROI. So long story short, but we did a lot of research when I was working there. And
Are they still on paper? Or
oh yeah, whatever.
Sorry.
Yes, they are fact sheets.
Well, maybe we can put them on like PDFs and upload them. And...
yeah, it would be so fun. I mean, when I was in college, I wrote a business plan to Eli Lilly and Company in Indianapolis on how to design their well-being program for their company before they ever had one. And so it was pretty cool. I'd love to show that to you.
Okay.
But then, so flash forward, I go and work on the supplier side because I really wanted to know all the sides of the business in the events industry because it was really singing to me. And so I went to work for various cities. I worked in San Diego, and then I worked in New York, and then I had 2 kids, had 2 years off, and I wanted to go back to work. I didn't want to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. So I called my friend who was a recruiter, and he said, how about Vancouver? And I'm like, I don't know anything about it, but sure, I like the health and wellness part of it. So I went to work with them and worked there for 16 years. And while I was there, I mean, Vancouver sings health and well-being, right? It's the environment that's there. It's everything. One of the things that when I worked there, we had Lululemon is based there, right? And they started this half marathon called Seawees. And Seawees is a made-up name, just like Lululemon is.
Seawees?
Seawees. SEAWHEEZE.
Okay, all right. So like seaweed, but seaweeds.
Seaweeds.
Okay.
Like Lululemon is a made up name.
Yeah. Right. Well, so is Google.
Right.
But, you know.
Fair. So they ran a half marathon to show their hometown brand, or their brand wanted to show their hometown, Vancouver. And so it happened one year, and I was told when I was 17 that I couldn't have kids because I was in a car accident. And so I had two kids, and I was like, and they told me I couldn't run. And I'm like, well, I've had two kids. I'm going to learn to run a half marathon. So I asked my boss, I said, if I get clients to run this half marathon with me, will you pay for it? And he's looked at me and rolled his eyes and said, you're never going to get anybody to run. Well, 7 years later, I had 70 planners run this with me. And it was life changing. We created a whole experience around it, incorporating the Lululemon experience and then some of our own destination education. And I have people that still reach out to me and say, because we called it the Seawees fam, and they call it the Seawees family, and we always have these little reunions and all. It's quite lovely and just awesome. So that really was kind of my favorite thing about my career in Vancouver. Obviously, I booked business and all that kind of stuff, but that was really my favorite thing. So,
So who did you work for in Vancouver? Was you said a GM? Oh, okay.
DMR.
All right. Yeah. All
so I sold large citywides based in Chicago. I was always based in Chicago.
Got
it. Then I was at PCMA in 2018, and I started I'm a big observer. I like to research and observe.
Is that the personality type you got from?
Yes. So then I was watching behavior, and I was in Austin, Texas, and I was just sitting there, and I was watching the older generation take in the meeting and the younger generation. And the way the older generation was taking the meeting, it was just exactly how people did. 7 to 7, dinners, out late, rinse, repeat, and they go home exhausted, tired, and, all of that. Then I was watching some of the younger generation, and it was, they're eating right. They're getting their exercise in. They're seeking out other friends that are like that so that they can get together, so they're not staying out late. They're finding different ways of digesting a meeting. So I was watching this. I'm like, this is the perfect time to do this. I went to David Peck and Paul, and I said, I want to bring my two professional loves together. And he knew my story because I've known them for years. And he's like, I said, would you help me study it? He said, of course. And then Maritz has a research arm and a behavioral science arm. So I was an independent contractor with Vancouver, so I could do an independent contract work with Maritz. And so it was 2018. I did 3 research studies, and I went in front of the customer advisory board, and then we did pilot testing. So the 3 research studies were about, do you think wellness is ever going to be a part of events? And I'm paraphrasing, obviously. And so it was out there like, yes, it should be, but if there's not enough benefit, cost benefit analysis of it, and I don't think people will digest. I mean, we've surveyed meeting planners and all that kind of stuff. So in the wellness world, there's a concept of dimensions of well-being, right? You know that,
yeah.
Right? We all know that. So I decided I wanted to bring 8 dimensions of wellness, at the time is what I called it, into the event side of things. So I brought in that well-being wheel, wellness wheel at the time. And so we went in front of our customer advisory board, and it was 8 dimensions at the time: physical, mental, intellectual, spiritual, career, social, financial, and environmental. And so we kind of did a little pilot testing with the customer advisory board, and they were all like, let's not do this yet. And I'm like, what's the problem? And then we circulated to other customers. And
what was the demographic of the customer advisory board? Was it diverse, or was it?
It's very diverse.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, so
I wasn't sure if it was just the old guard.
No.
Being resistant to change.
No.
It happens.
I mean, it was corporate association, men, women, diversity. It was. I mean, Maritz has always been very good at that, in my opinion. So, and then we went out to some customers, and then I went to some industry partners and said, "What do you think about this?" And I can tell you that I could see people shutting off, David. I was like, "What?" And I just didn't understand it. So you know what I did? Is I shortened it, and the words mental well-being and spiritual well-being were shutting people down. So I'm like, this has got to stop. So I shortened it from 8 to 5, and I put personal well-being, social well-being, career well-being, financial well-being, and environmental well-being. So that personal well-being includes everything that you need to physically be happy, right? Including your mental health, including your intellectual, including your spiritual health and including, just being a healthy person, right? Eating
Yeah, the
right
physical
food,
aspects.
right.
Yeah.
And so then the doors started opening. People were like, I want to look about this. I want to learn about this. So then the pandemic hit. Maritz hired me on
I call it the pandy.
the pandy.
It seems so much more fun that way.
Yes. Well, we did all this research, and Maritz offered me a job on Christmas Eve of 2019. And I'm a very committed person, and I worked for Vancouver for so long. I gave Vancouver a 3-month window of a notice, 3 months notice.
Right.
Started my job on March 2nd of 2020 with Maritz. And I was like, And at the first day, it was like, training and all that good stuff and all the stuff operationally. And then I think it was the day the NCAA canceled the Final Four.
Oh, right.
And I was like, oh,
This is a big deal.
that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was in all this design, because one of the things that we really wanted to do is design events around well-being, right? And so we were just getting all of this ramped up, working with a marketing department, talking to our salespeople, and then everything just suddenly switched. And so then I found myself, as things were starting to unravel in the pandemic, David would call on me to give well-being tips to the people that were stressed and what was going on. So I found myself working on design, and then I was just into tactical, let's keep people happy, healthy in the most stressful situation, not happy, because nobody was happy. But then we...
It's just managing.
Yes, but giving tips on stress relief, how to, there was a whole host of things. And then I got furloughed in May, and I was like, this is my brand new job. I created this stuff, and I was like, oh. But what I did there is I didn't want to. I care about this industry. It built me and who I am, and I want to give back. That's always been my thing, is giving back. And so somebody asked me to volunteer for the Events Industry Council, and I was on the Business Recovery Task Force, and so we created a recovery guide for workplace and well-being, and the EIC really wanted to focus on certain subjects. So I showed the 5 dimensions of well-being that Maritz had just adopted, and then the EIC adopted them, and we put it in the guidebook, and it's still a useful tool. So that was keeping me busy, and that during the pandemic, of course, I'm the lucky person that got to be president of the PCMA Greater Midwest chapter when everything was unraveling.
Oh.
So we decided to have happy hour. I mean, I think we're all given what we can handle when we can handle it, right? And I saw our members just crumbling. Some of our industry icons just showing up to happy hours, because I decided we're gonna have a happy hour on Friday, and it's gonna be our therapy group, because we were doing stuff that nobody had ever planned for. The force majeure, you always wonder, what was that? Why do we have that? Well, now we all know, right? But I mean, industry icons coming to these happy hours is a place to connect and say, I am going through something that I've never done before.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to have that practical experience, as well as helping the industry recover with a guidebook and all that kind of stuff. So flash forward comes October of 2020, and David Peckinpah and Greg Bogue, who was the head of the design studio at the time, said, we want you to come back, Rach, and we need to build the company back as we bring in people in. And we still didn't know what was going on, but we want to focus on personal well-being.
Right.
So then we started designing our events, the Maritz events, with the focus of well-being. And it's a design concept, right? It's taking those 5 dimensions, looking at each one, and how are you going to facilitate that well-being of the guest and have that at the heart of the experience. So we had our first event back was very well-being focused, like welcoming, and it was all about health, safety, and well-being.
When was it?
It was
Pop quiz.
It was 21. I think it was May of 21. Does that seem right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's when people started trying things again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had a whole floor dedicated to well-being. So we had a mindfulness lounge, we had a CSR lounge, we had a guitarist, we had healthy snacks, we had yoga, and we really created an experience where people felt welcomed. We had a care station, so if you forgot your hand sanitizer or a mask, those were there and all that kind of stuff. So it was very basic, but it was good. So that happened a couple of different times. 2 different events. And then the thing that was starting to happen is people were starting to come to us because everybody saw the pandemic and how the pandemic, you saw in the Venice Canal, there were dolphins swimming in the canal because nobody was traveling and there was no tourists. And,
Nature was taking back over.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, so we had focused on personal well-being, and then our innovation leader and Greg, our chief brand officer, were like, there's something going on around environmental well-being, and so they started bringing in conversations. And longer story longer, they said, Rach, we need to really have you focus on environmental well-being because there are these sustainability reports that we have to respond to, and they were starting to ask me to help create understand all this. And so I was digging into it, and I'm a researcher, I'm a passionate researcher, and so they asked me to do it. So that's what's taking me today, because now I'm focusing on environmental well-being, but it's from a business perspective as well. We obviously care tremendously about the personal well-being and the social well-being, connecting with each other. Obviously, seeing what the ritual we had here in our booth today, it was pretty amazing. But then we really need to focus on environmental well-being. And so there are our companies are Fortune 500, Fortune 100, and they have sustainability goals that they're trying to reach. And so we have to do sustainability reporting and all kinds of different things that I could go on. I could do another episode. So that's my story of how I got here today.
Okay, I love it. When would you say was the first time you tried to do wellness at an event?
Well, for me, when I was in my AFB days, Association for Fitness and Business, that was how we started our day. We had early morning workouts on the trade show floor because it was a full gym, right? And so, and that's the.
And did it work? Did people come?
Fabulous. I mean, that was the best part of the trade show.
Was there anything you tried that just bombed?
There at that show, no, because we had passionate people.
Fair enough.
Right? And then one thing we did back in the day, this was 94, I want to say, we had a program called Make a Difference, and it's a CSR project. We took a school in San Diego and renovated it. And while my 500 people were renovating the school, we brought all the kids back to the school or to the hotel and taught them say no to drugs, eat right, drink water. And I called on all these people that had been influential in my life, including Judy Shepard-Missett, who was the founder of Jazzercise.
Amazing.
And so I had her come.
Love that. And
she came, and she was one of the ladies that I told her my story, and she's like, I will be here in a heartbeat. And so she came to it. And
amazing.
We had the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sport. So that's all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That was a bubble, right? That was
Agreed. So then you left there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you wanted to do wellness or fitness kind of things potentially at that. Were you able to try that?
I did. So I did a lot of work.
And did it work?
No, everybody looked at me like I was crazy.
Okay, all right. So I think it's important to highlight some of that stuff and talk. So what did you try? Because then we know what's going to happen next in the conversation. What did you try? And yeah, how did it go?
Well, I tried early morning workouts.
How early? Like 5 or like 6 or 7?
I was always very purposeful because I don't believe in, don't interrupt somebody's normal schedule. You don't ask people to get up, or people don't normally get up at 6 to go running unless some do, some don't, right?
Right.
But you wouldn't do that at home. You just wouldn't. Some people will, granted. But to get the mass consumption, they just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? So I would start them at 7.
Okay.
I would try to push the general session later. But I got so much resistance. And I'm like, you guys, we've got to look after.
How late would you try to push the general session?
9:30.
And they hated it. Some things have not changed. Okay, so you tried to do a 7 a.m. workout. Was it like was it different kinds of workouts, or was it kind of one?
And one of my things about the way you design events and you design well-being into the heart of the experience is you don't intimidate people, and people don't intimidate them. a 5K can intimidate a lot of people. And so I took the word 5K and just said a fun run and to me, what we've done with our events is we have a running club and a walking club. And so the walkers can bond and the runners can bond, but we all do a warm up together. And it was brilliant, right? So everybody got together. One of the things that I loved the most is, and we had two kind of yoga classes, one for the advanced yogi, a hot yoga, and then we had an introductory to yoga.
Did you do a hot yoga at the event?
No, we took them to the yoga
Oh,
studio.
okay. I was like, that's impressive if you were able to.
No. It was
like,
it was in Seattle, and there was a yoga studio right down the street.
What kind of heaters did you bring into a ballroom to light that thing? Did you just have a fire or?
No.
Okay, all right. So you took them to a studio.
Yeah, but
okay.
Then we had the beginner yoga, and I still have people to this day saying, "You introduced me to yoga." And then the other class that we had.
So a term I don't want to say I coined it, but I was talking with someone and I said, wellness should be transformational and not transactional.
Oh yeah, totally.
And I love that people that you help people on their first step. And I think that's a really powerful message, that when people are thinking about incorporating wellness into their events, that you can literally change someone's life by creating something approachable.
Oh yeah.
Instead of intimidating.
Right. So when I was in Vancouver with the Seaweeds thing, right, we had 70 clients do this with us. It was not about running we created it so it was, we want to make you better, stronger, faster in business and in personal. And so we helped them. I connected each one of our participants, if I could, to a Lululemon store, and they have a run club.
Oh yeah,
so we
yeah.
got that personal engagement. And then when they showed up, it was all with the corporate headquarters, right? And it's all this fun stuff. But we taught people different things about their own well-being, even like essential oils. We've had an essential oil class and what that could mean to somebody. I still, like I said, I still have people call me and say that was transformational.
Beautiful.
And it warms my heart on every level.
It gives us purpose. Like we as planners prioritize everyone else's health and well-being over our own constantly. Mm-hmm. So when we feel that impact actually happen, mm-hmm. it's magical. To go back a little bit, when you were trying to push that, when you wanted to do that early morning workout and you wanted to push general session, mm-hmm. and you got told no, mm-hmm. were you eventually able to overcome that?
Oh, for sure.
How did you overcome that? Because I think that's something that's really, really valuable to people when they're trying to promote this internally.
It's a good question. I'm a very persistent person, and I just kept giving stats, interviewing people, getting people, attendees to give feedback on what they want. Really relied on my attendees and asked them very direct questions. What do you need? What do you want? And took that feedback and showed what they want. Because if it's just me saying it,
right,
it's not going to make an impact.
So would you like survey the attendees in advance of the event? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And say, how can we help design your experience? Right. And so it was all about design, right? It's design with intention, and it's listening to your guests and understanding what they need. A lot of planners, David, in my opinion, they just tell them what they need, and that's old school. We need to hear what they want, and especially with newer generations coming on to the being at the higher level now, right?
Yeah.
Or not younger generations coming into the management level and coming in. They're winning it for themselves.
Yeah.
Don't they think they want their attendees to have it too?
Right. Do you know David Allison?
I do.
The value. No, that's David Adler.
Oh, sorry.
David Allison. He speaks on something called value graphics instead of demographics.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's really the fact that people's values motivate.
Oh, for sure.
Over anything else. Anything they do is driven by their values.
Oh yes.
But I think that's one of the things. I was introducing him to someone, and I was talking about the return on emotion concept and that, the post-event survey.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, well, you don't need a post-event survey. And I was with a planner who's been a planner for a long time. She's like, what the fuck do you mean you don't need a post-event? How do you know you met your objective? And he's like, well, if you do the right planning in advance and you find out what your attendees' values are before they show up on site, you don't need one because you know that they're gonna leave. And it was a very like I kind of watched like I saw her brain just like kind of like lock up like why
you can't do it.
I don't no, but like she struggled with it, and it was I was like, yeah, that's kind of a mind-blowing concept.
Yeah, but he's right.
But that's how you convinced your executives was pre-event surveys of how do we make this more enjoyable? What are you looking to get out of this? Those kinds of questions. That's probably the biggest thing I'm going to take out of IMEX 2023 is pre-event surveys.
Oh, for sure.
It's 2023, right? Yes.
So yes.
Okay. Okay. Because so were you able to make that shift the same year, or did you have to kind of wait a little bit?
It's patience, but you have to have a mission, you have to have a vision, and you have to have a goal, right?
Yeah.
And I had a goal. I wanted my people to be healthier. I wanted my people to take good care of themselves while they were on site. And so I really had to know the end in my mind, right? And so I planned from that. And I think one of the things that I was most surprised about is people would come to me and say, thank you, you listened, and I'll be back next year.
What a concept. How novel. I want to completely divert for a hot second.
Yep.
I think because we are at IMEX and this doesn't happen enough here, and talk about sleep for a hot second. Is there anything you'd love to share about the importance of sleep?
Oh, that's the number one thing we need to focus on, in my opinion. Eating right, exercise, all of that. But if you don't get your appropriate amount of sleep for you, because I can't say it's 8 hours, it's
right.
What your body needs. You don't get that. You're not going to process your food right. You're not going to think right. And you're not going to be able to engage properly. So you have to focus on your sleep. And you need to know when your off button is. A lot of people just come into this and like, I'm out all hours. And they don't pay attention to their sleep. And they probably don't at home either, right? So it's really a self-awareness thing, and understand what that's going to require of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very self-aware thing. And some people are just not that.
I think I want to highlight on the fact of we as planners need to think about sleep more, not just for ourselves, but also our attendees.
Yes.
If you throw a party that goes until 1 a.m. and then you spent $50,000 on a keynoter at 8 a.m., how much, like you're literally flushing money down the toilet because people are going to show up less than, like they could, let's say there was no alcohol at the party. They're still up till 1 a.m. Their sleep is truncated, potentially. They're not going to be sharp. You're burning money. And the same goes for the executive who thinks their talk is ever so important. You're burning their time. And you say, okay, great. You know how you want to have a party the night before that goes until some god-awful hour. So what part of your speech don't you want them to remember?
And the length of it?
Well, the length of it's another thing. But if you're, it doesn't even matter at that point. Like if they're not getting enough sleep, they're, that's a problem in itself.
Yes. I'll call you, Ben.
Okay, so I think that's really helpful.
Sorry, saying goodbye to people.
It's okay. We'll leave it in. Show floor life. Okay, so we talked about kind of some things you tried, which were early morning workouts, 7 a.m. I love the idea of a 9:30 start time. That gives people plenty of time. Are you seeing people have more success with that now? Because I'm hearing mixed things on people being willing to do it versus like, well, this is how we've always done it. This is how we should keep doing it, blah, blah, blah.
It's a mixed bag.
Okay.
It's definitely a mixed bag. It depends on who they report to, what their organization's like, the culture of the organization, culture of the association. It varies between corporations and association meetings. But you've got to look at who your stakeholders are.
Yeah.
And really consider that. But you also have to have the data to show your stakeholders that this is what your people want.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really transformational piece that I hope people take away from. I feel like we've made progress in this wellness journey
100%.
and the acceptance of it. But sometimes at conferences within our own industry, it doesn't feel like it. So, given where you've seen things start versus where they are now, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you judge your hopefulness that this is going to continue to get better?
Oh my gosh, I think I'm full of hope.
Okay.
And I'm very excited to see where it's going. What we saw here at IMEX was pretty amazing because, and I have my tribe. We all have our tribes, right? And part of my tribe is Tahira. I love Tahira. She and I have known each other since my Vancouver days, and she gets the concept and she's weaving it into the experience. All the folks at IMEX are. Megan with Google, I mean, seeing what she's doing is transformational. So there's a lot that's happening, but we all need to stick together.
Yeah.
There are things that we're doing. We really want to focus on the design piece and really focus on how to teach the planners to design with well-being at the heart of experience. And so seeing it all here is great, but really the education piece is really big for me.
So I'm going to ask you, we're almost to the hot take section, so I'm going to ask you a semi, no, you know what, I'll save it. But I have a hot take question for you before we get into it. Okay, so let's jump into the future and predictions for what you see potentially happening at internal corporate events, and or our industry events.
Sure.
What are some, I don't want to call them trends, but like it used to be hard to like get a 7 a.m. workout scheduled. Now it's not. What's
I wouldn't say it's not. It's better.
better? Okay. What are some things that you think that we're going to start working towards? Like, what are the next steps in the wellness progression we've been making?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think people are more and more focused on lessening their impact at an event, right? People are very conscious about sustainability. And those go hand in hand, right? Taking good care of yourself, taking good care of the earth. And I think that as show organizers, they're expecting their show organizers to have good sustainability practice as well as well-being or personal well-being practices. So I think that is going to be a game changer if you're looking to recruit attendees. They're going to look at your agenda and they're going to say, I can see I have time to take care of myself. I can see they're running at sustainability. Okay, I'll invest my money. So I think it's going to come from that values and a time. And is my time worth this? And it's going to come from their values, like you said, and what are their values? And they're going to look at that. And I truly believe we need to highlight how we're hitting their values when we do our marketing. So I think that's really important.
Do you see agendas getting a little looser to give people more time to be able to?
Depends on the goal of the meeting.
Okay.
I have a client that it's a global leadership meeting and they're very busy. But I can see it creeping in because the person that's the event owner is worried about his future health. And it's starting to creep in a little bit more because he's had some issues with health.
It tends to be like in that episode I did with that woman Deb, like she, when we talked about sustainability and talking about sustainability of a person, it seems like so many times it doesn't usually tick until the executive has some personal impact.
Well, and that when you said that in your session today, well-being, I look at it as an individual and I look at that 5 dimensions of well-being. You can use that for yourself and you can use it for the design of your event.
Yeah.
So you can take those 5 dimensions and personally, you and me, we can think about how we operate our lives, and those 5 dimensions puts it in really clear buckets, right? So a lot of people struggle with that goal setting and the value setting and all that kind of stuff, and that really helps. In the event design piece, you look at those 5 dimensions of well-being and you can design around those. So personal well-being, the workout, the healthy food, all of that. the social well-being, like I said, connecting. Are you giving people enough time to connect? Career, are you giving people in your event design places to connect to better their career? And all of that is applicable to the person and the event.
Yeah. Well, there's the soundbite. That's fantastic. Okay, so going into the kind of the future of events and whatnot, I think we touched on that for the most part. We can go into hot takes now.
Okay.
One of the things that I felt like, how do we give people the opportunity? Like we just talked about sleep, right?
Yep.
There's this wellness challenge that happened here.
Yeah, I designed it.
I know. That's why I saved this for the hot take. There's nothing in there about sleep.
I know. It's a big debate.
How do we do that?
That's a good question. And I've been contemplating. I would love to incorporate a tracker for your sleep in that app to get certain points for it. We might do that. But it's, it was funny. I started the well-being challenges several years ago, and we'd have 50, 60 people involved. Then it got 100, 200. This time around, we had almost 1,000 people. And it takes time. People need to be educated. And I truly believe if we made it too complicated, they would say, no, I can't do this, right? So I'm looking for how we can get more adopting the challenge and putting new features into it. So it might be a new feature in an app.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first.
It might be.
Next year, might be. I think personally also there's tracking water.
Oh yeah.
Would be another great one, like hydration.
Yep.
Might
be. Let's see. I'm all open for design ideas.
Yes. I really would love to see, because I like to think of myself as a fairly healthy individual, but even if there was little things like a 5-minute timer that you did each day.
Yep.
That you paused and
we did gratitude journals last
year.
And so we had a gratitude journal, and people loved that. But it was getting, how do I say this? People needed to understand the basics, and nobody really did it at first. So there was a few adopters, but then we needed more adopters. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
So we're getting there.
Okay. No, and I think from someone who's on the outside looking in and not understanding, it's to hear that the progression of adoption of the app first before adding new features.
This guy just fell off the chair, and he's not. What is he doing?
1 hour later.
All right, and we're back.
Yay!
Live events, never a dull moment, right? Good eye catching it and seeing that there was a situation. Okay, hot takes.
Hot takes.
What has to stop? I love that you have such a strong empathetic side. It goes to say, it goes to why wellness is important to you.
Yes.
Because taking care of people is an important thing. So, hot takes. What do we need to do more of, and what's something that we just got to stop?
Well, we need to quit saying no.
Yes, and.
Yes, and. Exactly. It's yes, and. So think about the attendee and what they want. Stop saying no to different design.
Okay. Is that a 2-for-1 answer?
Yes.
Okay. Rachel, thank you. It's been an adventure. There's all kinds of audio on here that the editing team is gonna laugh. Yes, we wore mics the whole time.
Oh my God.
Mic'd up here on the IMEX show floor.
I'm yelling, or not yelling, saying breathe.
Yes. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. And yeah, let's talk more about the next step in the app for next year. Like, I'd love to.
Yeah, for sure. I'm open to ideas, design, everything. It's just.
Well, you better be, because you just said don't say no.
I'm an open book, and I want people to bring me all kinds of ideas.
Okay. All right. I love it. Thank you.
You.
I think that's the first time we've ended with a hug. All right. Thanks, everybody. New features?
This guy just fell off the chair and he's not. What is he doing? Sorry, I just saw him standing there. Oh, he just fell off the chair.
Live show, everybody.
Right.
Okay, so last two questions.
He's right. Hey, Dana. Dana, behind you. He fell.
Thank you. I will stay. I can't. No, I made it.
He fell off the chair.
Okay. We're still doing an interview when a guy dislocated his shoulder. Thank you. Events, right? All right, and we're back.
Yay!
Live events. Never a dull moment, right?